things look pretty good for the short term, but if there's a downturn, we're not prepared for it. What's your take, Larry?
I think Stephanie was right about that. I thought her comments were, in general, right on the mark. I don't think she's right that it's only trade frictions and the like that explain why the Fed hasn't been able to raise interest rates. I think it's the much more fundamental things we talked about a couple weeks ago, having to do with secular stagnation, rising savings, diminished investment propensity, all that. And I think we have a deep problem of maintaining demand without having unsound financial conditions. And they should be talking about that in Davos, but I actually don't think they are. I also have to say I've been going to Davos probably 25 of the last 30 years. I missed it this year. And in general, I'm not sure it's a leading indicator. I think it might be a contrary indicator. When Davos is most optimistic, that's when things tend to get worse. When Davos is most pessimistic, that's when things tend to get better. So it's a kind of indicator of sentiment. And I think there's a lot to be nervous about, both economically, given the level of markets, and politically, epidemics, geopolitical strife, all of it.
Roger, I want to pick up on one thing. Larry said it's not all about trade, but people are talking about trade. We had Christine Lagarde give a news conference just this morning, actually, about what was going on with Europe. And this is what she said. She said part of the turnaround in Europe is because of trade.
The risks surrounding the euro area growth outlook related to geopolitical factors, rising protectionism, and vulnerabilities in emerging markets remain tilted to the downside, but have become less pronounced as some of the uncertainty surrounding international trade is receding.
Okay, so how much of the optimism in the economy overall is because of at least a receding of trade tensions?
I think a fair amount of it, frankly. As one thinks about what was happening last year, a year and a half ago, there was anxiety about recession. That receded. Anxiety about trade as Trump put on more and more tariffs. And indeed, as we got through the so-called Phase 1 deal, my sense is that markets were breathing a bit of a sigh of relief. Having said all of that, if you listen to everything Christine had to say, she also points to a number of other risks, some of which are still, as she says, tilted to the downside. And so if I put Christine's comments in the broader context of what's next, particularly for the ECB, what I take from the entire picture is trade uncertainty perhaps has receded. That might help growth just a little bit. But nothing that she said suggests to me that the ECB is ready to do anything other than maintain a very accommodative monetary policy.
And Larry, Christine Lagarde and others have talked about fiscal stimulus. That could help on the demand side, presumably, that you're concerned about. But there's another number you pointed out, actually, in terms of collective bargaining power within the United States and the unionization of workers here. Could that help, in fact, with the income inequality in this country?
If we reversed it, it could. We've got a long-term trend. Now we're down to about 10% of American workers are in unions, and only about 6% are of private sector workers are in unions, and we're just seeing constant pressure downwards on wages. And that means constant pressure downwards on the people who have the highest propensity to spend. And that's going to mean more adverse pressure on demand. We've got to find ways of empowering workers and of pushing wages up. And I wish there was more focus on that crucial issue in all of these conversations.